A single gunshot echoed through a Sarajevo street on a quiet June morning in 1914. But what followed was not just panic, not just outrage, not just revenge. Within weeks, the most powerful empires on Earth began preparing for a war so massive, so industrial, so devastating, that no one alive had ever seen anything like it before. And the most terrifying part? Almost nobody thought it would last more than a few months. By the time it ended, entire empires would vanish, maps would be redrawn, and over 20 million people would be dead. But none of it started the way history books make it sound. In the early 20th century, Europe was a pressure cooker wrapped in elegance. On the surface, it was an age of progress. Grand cities, new inventions, steam-powered industry, and imperial wealth stretching across continents. But beneath that polished surface, something was breaking. Nations were not just competing anymore. They were preparing. Armies were expanding in silence. Naval fleets were racing to outbuild each other. Secret alliances tied countries together like loaded triggers connected to a single spark. And that spark was already moving through history, unnoticed. In 1914, no one could see the collapse coming. But history doesn't announce its disasters. It waits for the perfect moment. Before the war, Europe was not peaceful. It was tightly wound. Germany had emerged as a new industrial powerhouse, rapidly modernizing and challenging Britain's long-standing dominance at sea and in global trade. Britain, in response, watched every German shipyard expansion with growing suspicion. France still carried deep, emotional scars from its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War decades earlier, quietly waiting for balance to return. Austria-Hungary was a fragile empire holding together dozens of ethnic groups that no longer wanted to stay united. And Russia, vast, restless, and unstable, was positioning itself as the protector of Slavic nations in the Balkans. All of them were connected through alliances that promised protection, but guaranteed escalation. Because if one nation fell into war, the others would be pulled in automatically. It was not peace. It was a chain reaction waiting for impact. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary arrived in Sarajevo. The streets were decorated. Security was present. The visit was supposed to symbolize stability. But hidden in the crowd were young assassins linked to a nationalist movement determined to break free from imperial rule. Earlier that day, a failed bomb attempt had already failed to kill him. The Archduke continued his visit, unaware that fate had already decided otherwise. Later that afternoon, due to a wrong turn, his car stopped near a cafe. Just meters away stood Gavrilo Princip, a teenager, nervous, armed, waiting. 2 shots were fired, and in that instant, history shifted direction. The Archduke was dead, but the war was not immediate. What came next was far more dangerous than the assassination itself. It was interpretation. It was blame. It was pride refusing to back down. For weeks after the assassination, Europe entered a strange silence. Behind closed doors, governments calculated responses, threats, and alliances. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, issued a harsh ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia accepted most demands, but not all. That small refusal was enough. On July 28th, Austria-Hungary declared war. Russia mobilized in defense of Serbia. Germany saw Russian mobilization as an immediate threat. France stood by its alliance with Russia, and Britain watched nervously as the balance collapsed. Within days, what should have remained a regional conflict began transforming into something far larger. Like falling dominoes across a continent. No one could stop it anymore. Not because they wanted war, but because every nation believed backing down meant total humiliation. In August 1914, the war exploded across Europe. Crowds in major cities actually cheered. Young men marched to train stations believing they would return home by Christmas. Flags waved. Music played. Nations believed in quick victory. But the first battles shattered that illusion immediately. Germany executed the Schlieffen Plan, sweeping through Belgium to quickly reach France. Belgium resisted far longer than expected, slowing the advance. Britain entered the war after Belgium's neutrality was violated, and suddenly, Europe was fully engulfed. The war was no longer a regional crisis. It was total, industrial, global in consequence, and completely misunderstood. By late 1914, the war in the West froze. Armies dug into the ground. What emerged was not movement, but stagnation. A continuous trench line stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland. Mud replaced cities. Barbed wire replaced roads. Artillery replaced conversation. Soldiers lived in narrow, wet trenches filled with rats, disease, and constant fear of unseen explosions. Every attempt to advance ended in mass casualties. No one had prepared for this kind of war. Not generals, not governments, not humanity itself. The battlefield had become a machine designed to consume lives faster than it could produce victory. And still, nothing changed. While the West froze, the East burned. Russia and Austria-Hungary clashed across massive territories. Unlike the trench stalemate, this front moved constantly. Cities changed hands. Armies advanced and collapsed. Supply lines broke under distance and chaos. The scale was enormous, but so was the suffering. Millions of soldiers were thrown into poorly equipped battles. And beneath the military collapse, political instability was growing inside Russia itself. A revolution was forming in the shadows of war, one that would soon reshape the entire conflict. World War became the first industrial war in history. Machine guns turned open fields into killing zones. Artillery became so powerful it reshaped entire landscapes. Poison gas drifted silently across trenches, forcing soldiers to wear primitive masks that barely worked. Then came tanks, slow, loud, terrifying machines that crawled across battlefields like metal beasts. Airplanes, once a novelty, became tools for reconnaissance and bombing. But despite all this innovation, human tactics remained trapped in the past. That mismatch created something horrifying. Technology advanced faster than understanding, and the result was unprecedented destruction. While soldiers fought in trenches, civilians fought a different war at home. Cities were transformed into production centers. Factories ran day and night. Food became scarce in many regions. Propaganda posters filled walls, urging citizens to support the war effort and demonize the enemy. Entire populations were mobilized emotionally and economically. Women entered factories in unprecedented numbers, keeping war industries alive. The war was no longer distant. It was everywhere, in homes, in schools, in newspapers, in every conversation. By 1917, exhaustion had taken over Europe. Armies were depleted. Civilians were starving. Morale was collapsing. Then two major shifts changed everything. First, the United States entered the war after repeated attacks on civilian and commercial ships. Fresh troops, resources, and industrial power began tipping the balance. Second, Russia collapsed internally through revolution. The Tsar was overthrown, and the country withdrew from the war entirely. One side gained energy. The other lost an entire front. The balance of power shifted decisively. The end was finally becoming visible. In 1918, Germany launched one final massive offensive, hoping to end the war before American forces fully arrived. At first, it succeeded. Front lines moved. Allied forces were pushed back, but the momentum could not last. Fresh troops from the United States arrived in growing numbers. Allied counterattacks began reversing German gains. Inside Germany, shortages and unrest spread rapidly. Allied forces pushed forward relentlessly through exhausted defenses. One by one, Germany's allies collapsed. Austria-Hungary disintegrated. Ottoman forces surrendered. Bulgaria fell. And finally, Germany faced internal revolution. On November 11th, 1918, the guns went silent. Not because the war was solved, but because there was nothing left to continue it. The Treaty of Versailles officially ended the war, but its terms reshaped Europe with punishment, resentment, and deep instability. Germany was forced to accept responsibility, pay massive reparations, and lose territory. New nations were created across collapsing empires. Old borders vanished, but peace remained fragile, because beneath the celebrations, anger was already forming. And history, once again, was quietly preparing its next chapter. World War did not end as a single moment. It dissolved into consequences. Empires that once ruled the world disappeared almost overnight. Millions never returned home. In the modern world, political, technological, and emotional was permanently shaped in the aftermath of its destruction. And yet, despite the trenches, the gas, the collapse, and the loss, humanity continued forward, changed, scarred, and never quite the same again. Because some wars don't just end history, they rewrite it. If you want more cinematic journeys through hidden history and forgotten worlds, subscribe and stay with us. And tell us in the comments, what moment in history should we step into next?